Which position group on the Buffalo Bills roster do I have the most confidence in? We're breaking that down and a whole lot more today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. It's time for Herd Mentality, the weekly episode where you take control of our discussion, and we've got some great stuff to break down for you here today. And a quick reminder to you, I'm still in Rochester, attending Bills camp. So if the setup is a little different than normal, right? Not my normal background. I don't usually have a hotel curtain behind me. So if this is your first time tuning in, just be aware of that. And we have a couple more episodes this week while I'm on the road, but I'll be back at home middle of next week. Let's get into these outstanding questions. The first one comes from Chris. And Chris says this: now that training camp has started and you've gotten a good look at the team in practice, how would you rank the individual position groups based on your level of confidence in these overall groups as a whole? Please rank them based on which groups you feel the most confident in to the least confident in. Also, when ranking them, please consider both the quality of the starters as well as your confidence in the overall depth. I've asked this question in previous off seasons, and I'm curious to see your confidence level this offseason. So fun question here from Chris, and I have them all stacked up now to let you know in order of most confident to least confident. The position group that I'm most confident in is quarterback. That Josh Allen guy, he's pretty doggone good. And as obviously the most important player in that position group, I obviously don't think much of the depth, but Josh Allen as the starter transcends any level of depth concerns that I have. Josh Allen's the most durable quarterback in the NFL, and that's the player and position group that I have the most confidence in because it's, well, Josh Allen. Number two is the offensive line. I mean, the Bills are returning their top 9 from last year and added a draft pick and an experienced veteran in Kendrick Green to the equation. Aaron Kromer is going to have these guys ready to go. There's a proven starter at every position. There's young players that are developing. There's depth. I feel really good about this offensive line. Number 3 is running back. I mean, James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis might be the best 1 through 3 in the entire NFL. 3 complementary skill sets, 3 guys that can contribute on every down. Receiving abilities there, big play potential, physicality. That group has everything. Number 4 is cornerback, and obviously we're still waiting on the diagnosis for Maxwell Hairston, but I mean, you've got an A-plus player in Christian Benford. You do have a first-round pick in Maxwell Hairston. You've got Tre'Davious White, who is a player that's been proven in this system. Dane Jackson, a quality depth player. Dorian Strong, a good young player. Taron Johnson's an all-pro caliber slot corner. There's some intriguing depth pieces behind him. I think this cornerback room looks really, really strong, especially if Maxwell Hairston's going to be okay. Number 5 is defensive end. I got a lot of confidence in Greg Rousseau. I know what you're getting in A.J. Epinesa. I think Michael Hoyt's going to be a nice addition to this team. Joey Bosa, obviously a big part of this equation. Javon Solomon, Landon Jackson. Again, another group of young stud, veteran that's aging but still has life in the tank. You know, mid-level players, young player that's a draft pick in Landon Jackson. Javon Solomon as an X factor. I think there's a lot to like there. Number 6, I have linebacker. I'm a little concerned about injuries, but Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano as a pair is really good. I love where Dorian Williams is headed. I think Shaq Thompson might be quite the signing for this team. You got Joe Andreessen, There's Edifon Ulafosio. I think it's a good looking group. Balin Spector's been around. I'm pretty confident there. Number 7 is tight end. Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. I think you know exactly who Dawson Knox is. Kincaid has such a high ceiling as a receiving player. And then Jackson Hawes, I think, is going to be everything you hope he could be as a big-time blocking tight end. Not to mention Zach Davidson. And number 8 is wide receiver. I really like the possibility of the top 3 with Shakir, Palmer, and Coleman. Coleman's had a really good camp. And then you go Elijah Moore is kind of the next player. A lot of depth players behind that are intriguing. I think it's a good group. But still number 8, I haven't really gotten to a position group where I'm super concerned with. I think I'm confident in all of them. It's just how confident and, wide receiver at number 8 when there's several players I really like, speaks to the quality of this roster overall. And number 9 is D tackle. I really like Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. I just don't think we know anything about the depth. Dwayne Carter, Deion Walker, TJ Sanders, we just don't know. We just don't know how good those players are. And Ed Oliver has inconsistency, and Daquan Jones showed a little age on himself last year. So kind of getting to the point where there's some concern, but obviously a lot of youth and upside. And then last, I have safety at number 10, and I have a lot of confidence in Taylor Rapp, but do we really know how good Cole Bishop's going to be? There's some intriguing depth. I mean, you know what DeMar Hamlin is. Derek Forrest is interesting. Jordan Hancock's interesting. But I think outside of Taylor Rapp, you don't love what you have in DeMar if he had to start, even though I think he's a fine depth player. But as we still need a lot to learn about Cole Bishop, it's the position group that I put last. Again, although there is some ceiling there is some concerns that could be, reasonably had about that safety group. So that's how I stack it 1 through 10. And I'll be honest with you, I think this exercise gives me a lot of confidence in what this team has at its disposal in 2025. John says, based on your observations of camp so far, what would you predict will be the number 1 theme and focus for the first episode of Hard Knocks? Another way to ask, what will all the talking sports heads be discussing most on August 6th? Go Bills. I'm excited for Hard Knocks. Next Tuesday, we get the first episode. And I want to say this, if you're part of our Discord channel, I'm going to do a live chat while Hard Knocks is going on every single episode. So I'll be in the Discord channel sharing my thoughts live as it unfolds. So if you want to be part of the Discord channel, the way you can do that is through a Substack or a Subtext subscription. There's a link in today's show notes that can tell you what those are all about. Subtext is where you get one-on-one texting from me. I send you updates on the Bills with my first reaction, in-game texts. You can ask a question, interact. The Substack is where I provide additional written and film content. And there's a link to either in today's show notes. And then the incentive for joining either is you get into our Discord channel. And I do things like, have a live reaction to the Hard Knocks as it goes. So come be part of what we have going on there. So the question is, what do I think will be the number 1 theme of Hard Knocks? I think, first of all, let's acknowledge this. And this is something I recently learned. The director, the main guy for Hard Knocks is a Rochester native that is a Bills fan. And that gives me a lot of confidence that they're going to paint this team in the right way, right? And they're going to do a nice job. But he did an interview with WGR this week where he said basically, hey, episode 1 is going to be about introducing the Bills to the world. And that, of course, is going to be rooted in the main guys. And he mentioned Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, and Deion Dawkins as players. But then I think you'll start to get into, some of the stories, the Hard Knocks stories, and some players that I think can be part of that is KJ Hamler. I think he's a really dynamic personality that Hard Knocks will have to feature. Steven Gosnell is kind of the long shot wide receiver that I think is going to win people over in preseason. Joe Andreessen, I still think there's probably a story to unpack there as the local guy that becomes a player. Dalton Kincaid, I think there's a redemption story there, and same with Tre'Davious White. So I think those are going to be some of the characters or the main stars, if you will. But I think episode 1 is going to be a lot of Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and Deion Dawkins. All right, a lot to get to here on the other side of it, including a conversation about the future of the interior offensive line and which player I think the Bills will prioritize to extend. We'll do that and more. So folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year and every year, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first ever league or a veteran that's in your 1 millionth league. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is. The setup is easy, the mobile app is awesome, and the Smack Talk hits a little different in those message boards. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It's all going to begin for you on August 4th. So stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Welcome back, folks. As I've mentioned, I'm spending the week here in Rochester, but I'm also doing an event on Thursday night, July 31st. Sunny Reds in Lackawanna. Myself, Pat Moran, Jeremy White. We're going to do a live podcast at 8 o'clock Eastern time, so you can come be part of that. But I'm also going to get there early, hang out with anyone who's there, probably stay a little bit after and hang out as well. So would love to say hello. Would love to thank you for listening. So if you're around, you're available, Sunny Reds, Thursday night, July 31st. Again, the live pod's going to start at 8, but I'm going to hang out before and after and would love to say hello to you and have some fun in person and connect. I love doing that. So come on down. It's not a ticketed event or anything like that. You can show up, and the food is incredible at Sunny Red. So I'm excited to have some of those wings and talk Bills and hang out with Bills Mafia. So come on down if you are in town. Jeff says this: who, if any, of the current interior offensive linemen are re-signed? It sure seems like McGovern and Torrence don't fit with bookend tackles. If they had a day 2 guard to Anderson, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Tylen Grable, or pick up David Edwards for continuity and fill in with one of Anderson and Cedric Van Pran Granger at center in 2026 and Grable at right guard, there's lots of moving parts with tackles paid, and McGovern would be signed if we follow Bean's usual track record. What are your thoughts? So, yes, I think there's a big conversation to have about the future of the interior offensive line. David Edwards and Connor McGovern, both expiring contracts this year, and then O'Cyrus Torrence is signed for through 2026, but he's extension eligible after this year. And with what you're paying the tackles, it becomes very complicated to pay all of these players. I think that the priority for the Bills is going to be O'Cyrus Torrence. He's the player they drafted, right? Edwards and McGovern are free agent signings. He's also the youngest. He's also the one with the highest ceiling. It feels like that would be the one you would prioritize. And not that I wouldn't like to have them all back, because I respect all of those players, but I think the one they will prioritize is Torrence. And then you do have this developing pipeline, whether that is Tylen Grable or Alec Anderson or Cedric Van Pran Granger or Mike Edwards. That's a guy that we should be paying attention to with his size and athleticism and, kind of a sleeper here in this conversation. I think we need to be paying attention to him this preseason. So I think the Bills probably think they have some developing starters in the pipeline, which positions them to move on from potentially Edwards and McGovern. And so you pay Torrence and use some of your developing depth to become starters for you. I kind of see that being the way it plays out, with Torrence being the priority. I don't know that they won't bring back McGovern and Edwards, but I do believe that the priority will be Torrence, and it should be. He's the youngest player that was a draft pick that has the highest ceiling. Andrew says, Keon Coleman's ability to gain separation has constantly been identified as an area for improvement. Have you observed any improvements when it comes to his footwork, speed, dynamic cuts, ability to do any of this? Will his ability to win contested catches be enough to get him more targets? Well, I do think this is the right conversation, and that is the question with Keon Coleman is, can he be a good separator? Can he develop separation skills to maximize his opportunities on the field? I don't necessarily watch Keon Coleman even now and see a guy with explosiveness, right, or dynamic quickness or separation quickness or, that ability to rapidly accelerate. He's got some heaviness to his feet. But that's okay. Like, there's multiple ways to win at wide receiver. Now, I prefer players that can create that space for themselves. That's always something that I prioritize at the position. But I think what I've seen from Keon Coleman so far this year is a more physical player, a player that's more nuanced in creating leverage, right? So he's not always going to run away from people, but can he put himself in positions with his physicality to leverage at the catch point and be an available target, and then use that physicality to sustain himself and make plays on the ball. I think he's shown some growth there. And I've also seen more of an understanding of space versus zone coverage and kind of where to break off routes and where to be available based on the rotation of the coverage. So I've seen a lot of good growth there. But if we're expecting Keon Coleman to be a guy that's going to have the full route tree available to him, that's going to be able to separate consistently from man coverage, I think that's an unfair expectation of the player that he is. But that doesn't mean that there's not ways that he can be a meaningful contributor. And I think this team has really had an emphasis on praising the football IQ there. And he's a young player that earned a lot of opportunity in his first season. And I think you just have to accept him for the skill set that he is. And then the onus becomes on Josh Allen and Joe Brady to maximize that weapon as, of course, from Josh Allen's perspective, the guy that he pounded the table for in the draft. And then from Joe Brady's perspective, to put him in those positions to accentuate what he does well and mitigate some of the concerns. So there's going to be some limitations. And that's true for just about every football player in the world. And it's about putting him in the right opportunities to maximize what he can offer. And I think he's going to play a lot of snaps. And hopefully he becomes a reliable target and the Bills can maximize what he does do well. Koala Bear Khan says this: when you're observing training camp, do you feel it's a good thing when there's a relatively even split of good and bad plays / reps by the offense and defense? If the split is 55-45 or 60-40 on either side of the ball, what does that tell you? And is that a good sign for us fans? Well, I think you do want to see some back and forth, right? And I think back to last year. And if you remember, my big, bold prediction last year for the Bills was that Josh Allen would be the NFL MVP. And I went back and I listened to that clip recently. And I said this. I said, Josh Allen is out here having the best training camp of his career. And that told us a story about the Bills defense, right? That I think was absolutely true. The pass defense struggled. The third down defense struggled in a big way last year. And so the offense looked so good. And it was, a cautionary tale for, okay, this defense is not going to be what it needs to be this year. And I think this year it's been a little bit more back and forth, which signals to me that this might be a more complete football team. So I think you do want to see back and forth. I think that is best, but also I think there's a lot of context that is appropriate. Like when the one side is favoring the other, like what's the reason why? And are those reasons why important to where the team needs to go, right? So I'm not going to think much of certain players tilting the scales one way or another. It's who those players are and what does that tell us about the impact that they're going to make and where the team needed to grow. So after last year, I definitely find myself a lot more excited for more of a balanced back and forth as opposed to, boy, Josh Allen's lighting them up. And that was quite the story for where that defense was ultimately gonna land last season. All right, folks, coming up next, we got another fun question about some of the depth on this team and where I have confidence. So we'll unpack that more, talk a little breakfast foods on the other side of it. So folks, be sure to stick with us. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I know that happens for me on the golf course. One of my favorite golf memories was one time I went out to play 18 holes, and then they had a opportunity where you can run it back for a discounted rate, and went out there and played 36 holes. It was a good long day, but I didn't have a 5-hour energy that day, and I certainly wish that I did. And golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, folks, welcome back. The next one today comes from Rooks, who says, last week during Herd Mentality Live. Now, Herd Mentality Live is another perk of the Discord channel. Every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, I go live with our Discord members and we do Q&A. We might do trivia. We might do other things, but it's a cool little, like, very casual hangout that I do where I take live questions every single Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So if you're thinking about joining the Subtext or the Substack to get into the Discord, there's another great reason why it's an awesome community to be part of. Almost 2,000 Bills fans in there, and we have a ton of fun. So Rooks asked me this question during a Herd Mentality Live. He said, which veteran player I felt most confident stepping in for an unexpected younger starter if injured or benched? Vice versa to that, and with you seeing firsthand at camp, which players on rookie deals has your confidence in stepping in for veterans if they were beat out or went down? I think the name that comes to mind for me here is Tylen Grable. You know, if the Bills unfortunately had to play without Spencer Brown or Deion Dawkins, I love what Tylen Grable has showed us so far in camp this year, and of course the outstanding training camp that he had last year. So that's a player that I have a great deal of confidence in. I'm also developing a lot of confidence in Jackson Hawes if Dawson Knox were to go down, to be that inline blocker, to do all the things that Dawson does. So that's another player that I have a lot of confidence in. I think we saw Ray Davis last year step in for James Cook against the Jets, and that looked pretty strong. So that's another depth player that I feel pretty confident in on a rookie deal. So those are some of the names that pop for me, but you know, there's some good answers across this roster. Even Dorian Williams, if he had to step in at linebacker, is a player that I'm developing confidence in. Obviously, he's been injured in camp, but the trajectory there tells a pretty good story. Bills in my vein says, I have a question about your fandom and preferences. Obviously, it's not possible due to you living in North Carolina, but would you be a season ticket holder if you still lived in Western New York? I guess the most significant question to this is whether you like watching games at home or in the stadium better. I think the answer changes with age and responsibility. So if no, would you have done so at any point in your life? I love going to live football games. It's incredible. It's the atmosphere. It's being able to see the whole field. These modern stadium experiences are awesome where you get to watch the play and then they'll give you the replays that you're looking for. I really love it. For me, it's very challenging with logistics because I have post-game coverage. And, you know, if I go to a Bills game, it's very difficult for me to deal with getting back to wherever I'm going to be to do post-game coverage and lose a lot of time. And if I go to a Bills game that's at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, it's hard for me to really follow the rest of the league like I need to because I remember I do 2 national podcasts in addition to Locked On Bills. So it creates a lot of challenges for me. So when I attend Bills games, I love for them to be standalone games like Monday night or Thursday night. So there's nothing else happening in the NFL that day. And it's a lot more practical for what I have to do content wise, but like in a vacuum, watching the game at the stadium versus at home, I want to watch it at the stadium, but there's also some challenges with, you know, traveling to stadiums, parking, like you have to deal with inconsistent weather. You know, in my living room, the weather's perfect. Nobody's, you know, people aren't getting up all the time needing to walk to use the bathroom or get concessions. You know, there's a lot of things that I appreciate about the at-home experience. So I love football however I can get it. In a vacuum, I'd rather watch it at the stadium, but obviously there's so many layers to that for me that makes it a little bit challenging. But if I do go to games, I like for them to be Thursday night or Monday night. Ruckus has this question. What is your go-to breakfast when you're not making it yourself? When I'm out at a diner, even if it's breakfast for dinner, I'm picking corned beef hash almost every time. I can see you being a steak and eggs guy, but let's hear it. So I think this is actually very dependent on where I go. I go to different places and I want different things. There are places where I do love to get steak and eggs. There's places that I love to get pancakes. I think generally, if I'm not familiar with the establishment, I'm probably going to go with like some form of bacon, eggs, and bread. So whether that's a bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich or it's individual components, I will usually lean into that. And I will say this, I do like grits. I like grits. Give me some cheese grits, put a little butter in there. I do like grits. There's some places that I like French toast. So it will vary based on where I'm going. Sometimes I like an omelet. Sometimes I like a skillet. You know, I can be skewed based on, you know, where I'm going and what I like at that particular place. But I will say my at-home breakfast, it's always the same thing. Yogurt and a banana. Greek yogurt, banana, That's pretty much every single morning for me when I'm at home. So there you have it. Herd mentality. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And I certainly enjoyed answering these questions. Excited to get back out at practice for Thursday. Then we'll have Bill Squad right after practice at noon Eastern time with myself, Jeremy White, Jerry Ostrowski. And then Friday, we'll get you a podcast after the Blue Red. So that one will drop a little bit later on Friday. The Blue Red starts, I think, 5:30. So, probably later on Friday night, that episode will drop. But plenty of coverage coming your way. And, of course, daily podcast all year long. So make sure that you are subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.